listening to Speaking with One Voice with Rodney Payne. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, topics you'd like discussed on the show, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email us at rpayne@onevoiceinc.org. That's rpayne@onevoiceinc.org. You can also search for us on Acast, Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. Just look for Speaking with One Voice. Now, here's your host, Rodney Payne.
Hello, and welcome to Speaking with One Voice. I am your host, the coach, Rodney Payne. We are back here with another episode of Speaking with One Voice, the podcast devoted to developing, growing you and or your leadership team, and we are excited about what's happening in our space. I want to just tell you, thank you so much for liking, and I really appreciate you subscribing to our YouTube channel. Our numbers are continuing to grow, and it's only because you're doing that. So please go to our YouTube channel at Rodney R. Payne and go ahead and subscribe and click that bell there so you'll know when new episodes are coming out. And as we are rounding out the year, we've got to get hyper focused to finish strong so that we can get into our next year strong with a strategy and a plan that works for us. I can also tell you that Live to Lead happened last month. It was an amazing time here in Oklahoma City. Now we're into our private showing season. So if you'd like to have a customized approach of Live to Lead that has some great speakers, we've got some things. I mean, it was amazing. I did one this past week. And so if you want John Maxwell, if you want Valerie Burton, we have others who you can get. Just make sure you DM us and say Live to Lead, and we can bring our event to you. Again, the event is customized, so you can get one speaker, all speakers, half day, full day, team meeting. Listen, Jesse Cole of the Savannah Bananas is a phenomenal. You want to be a part of this and get your team involved in this. So make sure that you are staying connected. Also visit our website, rodneyrpayne.com. And if you're not doing so, follow us on social media at Rodney R. Payne. And I want you to turn on your notifications, like us, and subscribe. And we want to hear from you. So let's talk about what we have for you today. Lately, it's really been pressing on me that leaders face many failures. And the key to successful leadership is not that you don't fail, but it's that you fail as little as possible and you learn as much as you can when you do fail. Like John Maxwell's book title, Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. So today I want to talk about leadership failures and the ripple effect. What happens with leadership and failures is that when we have a failure, it's not just the failure that's the problem for us. So I really want to kind of unpack this and give you 3 or 4 things that you need to be on the lookout for. So when you think about a leadership failure, think about it from this perspective. If I have a leadership failure, what can be the broader impact of that failure? Not just the failure itself, but what else does it touch? What else does it impact? What else does it influence? So when we think about this ripple effect, if I fail in handling one leadership situation from an HR perspective or dealing with a team member in an inappropriate way, meaning I was harsh or I didn't navigate that minefield too well, it impacts other employees. That's a ripple effect. If I have one financial decision that's bad, it can ripple effect in the other bad decisions. So I really want us to think about every decision we make. Don't just look at the immediate impact, but look at the residual or what we're calling the ripple effect of those decisions, because they're going to impact your organization across the board. And many times we're trying to figure out how to make this happen and how to recover when we didn't pay attention to the ripple effect. So we want to make sure that we contain our failures. That's right, contain our failures. So when you have a failure, that you want to make sure that you do. It's often described as damage control. I want to call it contain because we understand that we didn't intend to fail, but how we move proactively beyond the failure will help us to contain or isolate into a certain area where we might have an infected department. We don't have to have an infected company. We might have a singular financial failure. It does not have to be a ripple effect financial failure. So I want you to understand that today's failure is more than just a singular event. if we don't take it seriously, if we don't take the time to investigate and figure out what really happened here, and then we can put things in place to learn from this failure. That becomes our education process. So as we learn that leadership failures have ripple effects, I want us to understand that we can minimize that impact. And as leaders, it's our job to do great work at containing our failures. So let's look at it a little more specifically, right? Let's dig down as we talk about the ripple effect. Think about financial implications. There is verifiable data showing losses related to poor leadership of up to a 26% decrease in revenue. So a leadership failure, it doesn't only hurt your growth, it actually causes you to lose up to 26% of revenue because you had a financial failure. It's so important that we understand that there are these residual costs. And so we want to learn, we want to go through the process, and we want to understand. And going back to an old carpenter's adage that says measure twice and cut once. Why? Because you can end up losing so much more just because you were not fiscally responsible, or you didn't take the time to vet out the opportunity. Every opportunity, my friends, is not a great opportunity. So when you're making decisions, and I talk about this in my book, Critical Decisions Made Easy, I talk about how when you make the decisions, you must quantify, you must truly count the cost of that decision and what might be the ripple effect from that decision. What might it cost you when you make this decision without fully vetting the decision? Now, I'm not suggesting that you should get comfortable, get in your lazy boy and lay back and relax and never make the decision because you don't want to make a bad decision. But I am suggesting that before you make this decision, let's have some intention. Let's have some investigation. You keep hearing me say that. Let's look into the process. Let's look into the financial decision we're going to make and make sure that we are putting our company in the best possible position to succeed. There are times when you're going to have to invest in your business. For instance, there's an adage that says it takes money to make money. And I fully agree that you have to invest in yourself. I even believe in a certain amount of risk that are going to have to be taken based on your level of risk comfortability. But even though we have to spend money and we have to take risk, we don't have to take unnecessary risk or risk that we are unable to mitigate. So when you're looking to make a financial decision, and you say, this will be the one that's the breakthrough on my company. Well, if you have this breakthrough financial decision that you can't afford to do, you need to figure out a way to mitigate that decision. What I often tell my clients is, listen, I know you want to spend this money, and I believe it will help you to spend this money. The problem is you don't have the money. So what we need to do is determine a way to make the money to pay for the investment so that we can position ourselves for financial success. Because if we put all of our eggs into this one basket and we spend this large sum of money that we have no way of recovering and our idea doesn't work, we will have a ripple effect that could literally put us out of business. One of the main reasons that businesses fail, particularly customer facing businesses fail, is undercapitalization. I've seen many, many restaurants. They've got great food. They got great recipes. They just don't know how to run a business. And so when they have no money and they're undercapitalized, they go in thinking they can sell enough food today to buy food for tomorrow, forgetting that they have to pay rent, they have to pay employees, they have overhead, they have systems, they have inventory. And so what happens is one financial failure, one leadership failure in financing can have a ripple effect that can close your doors. Strong leaders are strong decision makers, and we are well aware of leadership failures. Now, I don't want you afraid to make changes and to make choices, but I want you to do it with open eyes, understanding, and a strategy. That's right. You have to have a strategy. Now, let's move on a little bit. I also want to talk about when talking about a leadership failure and the ripple effects. You understand what the ripple effect is. You understand how that works. We've talked about a possible 26% decrease in our revenue. Now, we've even talked about the possibility of closing our business. But let's talk about this. What about reputational risk, reputational damage? See, we have a leadership failure and we fail to deliver, and our organization is not strong enough, doesn't have the infrastructure to support a leadership failure, what happens is now we lose our image publicly. Now we have a negative hit on our public image. What happens then is there are people who believe in us, but because of our failure, we can't have the risk of being associated with them. Oh my goodness, this is so important. There are certain types of clients, and in my book, Critical Decision Made Easy, I talk about your guiding principles. There are certain people or brands or types of businesses that I am just unwilling to work with. Not because they're not good people or not because they don't have a good business, but based on the nature of my business and what our guiding principles are. There are certain businesses I just can't do business with because of the reputational risk it would cause for me. Because my brand is built on A, B, and C. Yours may be built on D, E, and F. But either way, you have to know that you want to protect your reputation. You want to have a reputation for good and not bad. You want to have a reputation of success, not failure. So when we talk about leadership failures, we can't afford to hurt and harm, to diminish, to devalue our brand. It is so important that we establish our reputational uh, appetite. In other words, what are we willing to risk as it relates to our reputation? I worked in the bank for many years. I'm a retired banker, and so in banking, a very conservative profession, I could say. I was in the middle market space up to $500 million. Excuse me. And so in that space, there were just certain types of businesses that the bank would not do business with. They weren't bankable. It had nothing to do with their credit history. It had nothing to do with their cash flows or revenues. It was basically this type of business puts us at risk from a reputational perspective. So we choose not to do business with this type of client because that could come back to us negatively. Well, in leadership, we have leadership failures. They put our brand. We spend so much money and time on our social media platforms, our branding, our colors, our messaging, that we don't want to put that at risk. So you got to be real careful because reputational risk is that your ripple effect rather would be that it would cause your brand long-term harm because of a leadership failure. So I want you to think about that as you are moving forward in building your brand, and let's avoid these leadership failures. So now, let's talk about this. Now, we've talked about reputational risk. That's kind of public facing. We talked about financial. That's kind of internal. Let's take it deeper on the inside and even external. This is one that kind of hits both places. I want to talk about the risk of your talent pool draining, reduction. So what happens is when you have a leadership failure, it can cause you to lose the talent you have. It can also negatively impact the talent you're trying to attract. So statistics on how top talent looks for opportunities somewhere else, it's because they look for places, they look to get out of places that are poorly led. They leave for leadership. People like to think it's about money, but it's a whole lot more than money. It's environment, it's culture, it's the way we do business. So when we have too many leadership failures, the ripple effect is we can lose the talent that we already have, and we can become unattractive to potential talent. That's why leadership is so important. That's why you want to invest in your leadership. I've shared the stat with you. Understand, organizations that invest in developing leaders see a 7-to-1 return on every dollar they spend on leadership development. That's an ROI of $7 for every dollar spent on leadership development. Why? Because a poorly led organization has risk and ripple effects that cause us to not get the top talent or retain the top talent, whereas successful brands invest in leadership and the converse happens. So now we're attractive. People want to stay and people want to be a part of our team. I just completed a transaction, as a matter of fact, earlier today. In this transaction, I was working with an individual and they were telling me about the specific brand they work for. And they said they'd worked for many brands similar, but not this one. I said, so what's the difference? Why here? It was, well, people don't leave here. So they have very few openings. And so you have to wait until basically they recruit you. So when I got the call to come here, I left where I was. That is the power of talent attraction, because you have a brand that people want to come to. That comes from good leadership. That comes from well-trained leaders. And so it differentiates you in the marketplace. So I want you to be very careful of having leadership failures. And remember, you don't know what you don't know. So get involved. And I want you to really think about adding someone to your process, to your organization through a contracting versus something to help you to grow as a leader, because that's what's going to change the way you ultimately find success in your business. Now, the last thing, I've given you three things. You understand it, but I've given you three things, right? We've talked about talent, we've talked about reputation, we've talked about finances. Now, if you want a key to help you in your leadership, to avoid rather leadership failures, we have to learn how to communicate effectively. That's right, communicate effectively. See, solid communication is what mitigates leadership failures. You only can do what you know. I said it before, you don't know what you don't know. I lead an organization and I probably have around 50 leaders. There's no way I can know everything. But I when I don't know what I don't know, it causes pileups. It causes crashes in leadership. It causes people working out of position. So while you may not have to know every micro detail, you should have a big picture understanding of where the organization is going, what the core values are, what the vision is, what our focus is, how we handle situations, what are our SOPs. These are things that are going to help you in your process. And the only way that these things reach throughout the entire organization is with effective communication. I'm telling you, you have to be willing to take the time, invest the time to build the infrastructure to get the information both to and from. Listen, communicating effectively means that from the top of the house, our communication reaches its tentacles to the very lowest level of our organization. It also means that those who are at the lowest level of the organization can reach the top of the organization and everyone in between. That's an effective communication model that allows for a consistent culture, and it breeds for success, and it also mitigates leadership failures. We don't want leadership failures because they have ripple effects. Now, listen, I've got one more I want to talk about. And we've talked about leadership failure, the ripple effect, right? We're talking about that. How about this? Leadership success also has ripple effects. When you lead well, it helps with talent retention. It helps to grow revenue. It helps with internal communication. It helps with culture. See, so it's not just about the failure, it's about the success. And so I want to encourage you to make sure that you are willing to invest in your leadership. So real quickly, understanding the ripple effects of leadership failures, it has a negative impact on an organization. And our goal is to contain those failures in a specific area so we can redo, overcome, restart, increase culture. Want to make sure that we're building financial infrastructure that helps us to understand that if our finances are well and we don't have leadership failures, we won't see the up to 26% decrease in revenue because we are not doing well in leadership and experiencing leadership failures. We talked about reputational damage. I called it reputational risk as well. We want to make sure that we don't have failures so that we keep our reputation, what we're known for, very clear and very consistent. We want to make sure that we don't have the risk of talent drain. When we keep failing at leadership, we're going to lose talent, and we're also going to lose our ability to attract talent. And how can we fix this? We can fix it by communicating effectively. That's right. We need to have solid communication, and that's going to mitigate our leadership failures and put us in the position to have leadership success, which also has ripple effects. So listen, I'm Rodney Payne. I am your host, the coach. And what I want you to do is listen, One Voice Leadership. We're here to add value to you. We're nearing the end of the year and we're preparing. I want you to make it your business to reach out to us and let's talk about how you can get the leadership training that you need, not a cookie cutter approach. We will assess your business. We'll identify your desired outcomes and we'll develop a strategy along with you that will help you to meet your leadership development goals. I want you to reach out to us. You can direct message us. You can always email us at rpayne@onevoiceinc.org. You can comment on some of our posts. We're on social media at Rodney R. Payne. There are a plethora of ways for you to get to us. Our website is rodneyrpayne.com. If you go there, there is a link where you can schedule a free clarifying strategy session. We'll sit down, we'll talk about your business, and we will prepare you for the next level of communication to avoid leadership failures and to reduce the ripple effects thereof in your business. Listen, I have had a blast talking to you today. I'm so excited to be here with you on Speaking with One Voice. I want you to do me a favor. Make sure you go to our YouTube channel, Rodney R. Payne, and let's get subscribed there so you can see the video version and also continue consuming this content wherever you're consuming it. And we love comments. We love feedback. And if you'd like a special topic talked about, reach out to me. Maybe we can cover it and help you to grow in your business. That, my friends, is our commitment. Don't forget, you can bring Live to Lead, the John Maxwell event, to your organization. You can do it slice and dice. You can do a full day, a half day, or even one speaker. We have various options available for you, and we're here to help you to meet your goals and your desired outcomes. Listen, as always, it has been my extreme pleasure to be with you. I'm so glad to be back in the office with these podcasts because I just love adding value to you and your team. So as always, you have been listening to Speaking with One Voice with your host, the coach, Rodney Payne. Until next time, my friends. Let's keep growing together.
You've been listening to Speaking with One Voice. Please remember to follow Rodney Payne on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Rodney R. Payne. We'd love to hear from you and get your feedback, so please feel free to leave us comments. And if you would, rate and subscribe to the podcast, we'd appreciate that as well. Don't forget to set up for notifications so you can get the latest updates and social media posts and get new podcasts when they're released. As always, use the hashtag Speaking with One Voice or simply SWOV on any of your social media posts. On behalf of Rodney Payne, thanks again.